Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to our first meeting of the Palmetto Kids Summer Enrichment Program for 2020. Has anyone ever told you no, no matter how many times you asked, they still said no? If that's ever happened to you, then you have something in common with one of the people in our story tonight. Listen and see if you can figure out which person that is. The Israelites were God's people, but they were slaves in Egypt. Slavery is a horrible thing. They were terribly mistreated. They were beaten and persecuted. They cried out to God to please save them because they didn't want to live like that. God didn't want them to live like that. He heard their cries and he decided to do something about it. A man named Moses was tending his sheep one day when he saw a burning bush. It was an odd sight, so he walked closer to see what was going on. The bush wasn't burning up. As he got closer, God spoke to him and said, "Moses, take your brother Aaron and go tell Pharaoh, who's the king of Egypt, to let my people go." Moses and Aaron obeyed God. They went to see the Pharaoh. Moses said to the Pharaoh, "God of Israel says, let my people go." Pharaoh said, "No. Who's going to do all the work if I let the Israelite people go? No." Moses took his walking stick, threw it down in front of Pharaoh's feet, and it turned into a snake. He said, "See, I told you God sent me." Pharaoh said, "I don't care. No." Moses went back to God and said, "What do I do now?" God said, "I'm going to send you a bunch of signs so that everyone will know that I am God and I am all powerful. You just go ask and I'll take care of the signs." Again, Moses obeyed God. He went to Pharaoh and said, "The God of Israel says, let my people go." Pharaoh said, "I told you, no." So God turned the Nile River into blood. There was no water anywhere. It was all blood. Pharaoh still said no. So when Moses asked again, and Pharaoh said no, then God sent a plague of frogs. Frogs were all over the land. They were inside, they were outside. You couldn't step anywhere without stepping on it. It was gross. But Pharaoh still said no. So God sent a plague of gnats everywhere. But Pharaoh still said no. So God sent flies. The flies ruined the whole land. But Pharaoh still said no. So God sent a plague on the livestock. The horses, the cattle, all of the animals of the Egyptians died. But God didn't let the animals that the Israelites owned die. Only the Egyptians. But Pharaoh still said no. God then put boils on the people, which are big sores. They hurt and they ooze and they're gross. Pharaoh still said no. Then God sent hailstones. We've had hail. We know what that's like. And it beat down on the crops and ruined the crops. Pharaoh still said no. So God sent locusts, which are bugs, and they ate out what little bit was left of the food that was in the fields. Pharaoh still said no. Then God sent 3 days of total darkness. And do you know what Pharaoh said? Right, he still said no. Moses told the people that the worst was yet to come. They were to put the blood of a lamb on their doorpost. That night, the angel of death was going to pass over Egypt, and anyone that didn't have blood on the doorpost, the firstborn son in that house would die. That's what happened. God sent the angel of death. The next morning, the Egyptian sons had died, and there was great suffering. Pharaoh said yes then. He finally let the Israelite people go, and God delivered them from slavery.